There's one other person pressuring him. Now, when we do it at the Young Turks, God bless, we hope we help a little, right? But Keith Olbermann is a slightly larger voice. And so when he does something, people pay attention. Well, he had Eugene Robinson from the Washington Post on here. Now, we're going to show you the clip and then come back and talk about why I think it's so significant. Let's watch.
But what about the risk of passing some sort of interim measure here? And we hear Congressman Grijalva, who's the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, having released a statement last night about grave concerns about these contacts supposedly from the administration to health care reform advocacy organizations. They're going to cease supporting the public option. What good does it profit a man to win a bill and lose the base of his party?
In the medium term and in the long run, it doesn't strike me as a great idea. I mean, look, you could say, okay, this is the best bill we can get. Is the liberal progressive caucus going to thwart what is possible in search of the perfect? And so you could put them in that position. You could maybe wrestle them into going along with what they consider a bad bill, but there's a lot else on the table. Our involvement in Afghanistan is deepening. We're talking about Iraq. We're talking about Guantanamo. We're talking about a lot of issues on which the Progressive Caucus is going to have a lot to say, and I don't think you'd want them to be in a foul mood.
No, because he's compromised on everything so far, and as self-defeating as it might be, the Progressive Caucus and progressives would abandon him if necessary, if this would be the policy of this administration into 2012. If it's necessary to find somebody else to run against him, I think they'd do it, no matter how destructive that might seem at face value.
No, I think that is possible. We are a more polarized nation right now, and I think searching for a mythical center, a mythical compromise between doing something and doing nothing, there's nothing in the middle there. Either you're going to do something or you're not, and I think you got to choose.
The middle has been nothing all this time. This is just a different variant of it. Gene Robinson of MSNBC.
All right, did you get that? That was a clear shot across the bow, okay? I mean, that was a warning shot from Olbermann. Hey, you keep this up, I guess the Progressive Caucus will have to run someone against you in 2012. Imagine how destructive that might be. Saying, hey, listen, you know what? It's not only going to be the right wing pressuring you from now on. Okay, you want a battle on your hands? All right, we'll battle you. And so it's fairly significant when Olbermann mentions this on national television. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and it was maybe not quite a month ago, but in that ballpark. I said, look, at what point do you look at Howard Dean and say maybe you got to run a primary against Barack Obama in 2012? Because as Olbermann said there, he said he has compromised on everything so far. And at what point do you say, that's enough, okay? We've compromised and we've compromised and we've compromised, but we can't compromise any more than this. And if he jettisons the public option, I think we're at that point. Now, to give you a sense of how absurd this has become, the main person now writing the version of the health care reform bill in the Senate is Olympia Snowe, because she's the one Republican that they're going to further compromise with, okay? So you're telling me we have 59 senators and 60 when they replace Ted Kennedy, and we're letting one Republican write the bill? Now, what kind of sense does that make? Do you remember when the Republicans were in charge? Did they ask the Democrats to write any bills? Come on, laugh along with me. And can you imagine George Bush saying, oh, you know what? We really got to make this thing bipartisan. Hey, Pat Leahy, can you write the bill for us? Come on, it's absolutely laughable. They never asked a Democrat to write a damn thing. How could the one Republican be writing this bill? It's madness. It's crazy. So, look, if you don't put pressure from the left, he will bow down to the right. I hate to tell you this. Now, remember, look, it's not just what he's done so far. Remember his legislative history. Remember my concern with him in the primary. Somebody asked in an email or in a comment somewhere online, I wonder what Cenk of November 2008 would think of Cenk today, like a guy who was fighting so hard for Obama. Look, I was never under the impression, and I told you this how many times before the election, that all of a sudden he was going to cure everything. Now, I didn't think it was going to be this bad in terms of that he wasn't really going to fight for the change that he promised, right? But I was not under that delusion. Why was I not under the delusion that he was some sort of savior who would get everything right? It's because of what he did in the Senate. My main concern, if you remember in the primaries and then in the general election, was he did nothing to fight Bush when he was in the Senate. You remember that? And I kept asking, and that's why I hesitated for so long before saying, all right, Obama over the others. What has Obama done to fight Bush? And in the time that he was in the Senate and Bush was president, it was a big, flat zero. You want to talk about a donut hole? That was a donut hole. So now, why is that such a concern, other than the obvious, which is it would have been nice to have someone fighting against all the terrible things that Bush did? It's because it gives you a sense of his inclinations, which is, let's not get carried away here. You know, let's fight. Oh, God, that's so confrontational. Well, you know, why don't we all just get along? Well, there's some guys you can get along with and some guys you can't get along with. So, you know, that's what scares me.